Welcome to the Deeks.ai podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time.
Think your degree is the finish line? For Nam Tran, it was just the starting block. Moving from his master's at Wake Forest to the fast-paced world of Sales Factory, Nam reveals how he used digital co-pilots to supercharge his abilities. He argues that as technical skills become abundant, human judgment becomes the ultimate premium. From vetting automated code to ensuring a brand's voice stays authentic, hear why the human in the loop is the most important job title of the next decade.
Today we have a special guest. He's part of our alumni series. So in the past we've talked a lot with some of our faculty and our staff, and we have some students coming up as well, but we wanted to give people insight into what life after Wake is like. How does this AI future translate after you leave the classroom and go out into the real world? So we uncovered an alum that was not only recommended by one of our past guests, I think, was it Shannon? Shannon, but he also works with another one of our guests, Juan Hernandez.
Awesome.
Anyway, we have Nam Tran, who was an MSMBA student, okay, just graduated fairly recently. Like I said, works at Sales Factory, but I'm going to let him tell his story because it's kind of interesting of why he came to Wake, how he started and transitioned into something else, and then we're going to get into his Wake history and then what life is like once you leave the walls of Wake Forest. So
Sure.
welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction, right? So my name is Nam Tran. So I first got to know Wake Forest from lots of my professor recommendation back in my my undergrad school. I think some of them went to school in North Carolina, and when I asked them about recommendation for the master degree in business analytics, lots of them recommended Wake Forest to me, and that's how I came to know about this school, and I applied, and eventually I got into the program. So when I came here, at first I was thinking that I would eventually become more like a machine learning engineer stuff, but then after being able to interact with a lot of great professor like Michael Ames or Shannon, they kind of sparked my curiosity in AI, and I eventually find out more about this field, get to work with some of the clients that leverage AI in our group project, and that's how I decided that I would like to develop my careers in this very exciting new journey.
Fantastic. So when you were going through the program, and you just graduated fairly recently,
Yes,
correct?
in 2024.
Okay. So you entered, and AI was part of the world.
Yes.
But you didn't exclusively use it in the program. You're still interested in it, but did you have any assignments that specifically required you to use it? And also, I know you talked a little bit about using it to help yourself study and understand concepts. So maybe talk to us a little bit about how you used it while you were a student.
Yeah, sure. So one thing about Wake Forest I find very interesting is the professor here, I can talk to my experience from the school of business. The professor they very open about AI. Some of them in my program they even encourage students to use AI to expand their research and kind of get some of the ideas to bring them into the homework, the assignments. And some of the homeworks I did actually use AI to get some of the ideas so that we can be some creative in the assignments. But I think for the majority of the time I like to brainstorm and use my own thinking first before I can ask for help from AI. And I think that build a strong foundation for me before I can enter the industry, the tech industry, where you definitely need a very strong foundation to compete with other developer or engineer out there.
Interesting. Okay, so when you went through the program, I think you talked about doing some partnerships or some projects with certain outside companies.
Yes.
And was one of those Sales Factory?
Yes, so like at first I did with like SAS, their headquarters in Cary. And then in the second semester, I think in the third semester, I was recommended by Professor Shannon,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to meet with Juan, like with Sales Factory,
Mm-hmm.
and then like that's how I started with them. I get to work with them on an internship basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that I continued to do intern with them until December before I joined them full time.
So, as Juan explained to us, Sales Factory is a very AI forward company.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about what you did as an intern with them, not what you do in your job now, but what did you do as a student, an intern with them?
Yeah, so I think like during like the time that I was a student at Quake and when I was like doing the intern with them, so the majority of the time that I was working on the something called like the RAG frameworks, like we would like prepare the data, we would like so for example like the data out there like in the on the internet, like a lot of them they are in the PDF or Word documents or sometimes like Excel format. Um, the the basic of like RAG is that you would need to get those data into like the memory of the agents of the LM so that it can like leverage those data to answer your question in a relevant way. So sometimes you ask some question, for example, like you want to know about who's like the new president of like Apple, for example, like if they don't have access to the internet or if like that information is not available during the training data, then they need to like get the data somewhere. So in Drag, like we would have those data available to the model's memory so that they can just use that information to answer the data for you.
That's
But
a way to keep your corporate data private,
yes,
but still use the power of a large language model.
correct.
So you can combine your query from the large language model
Yes,
with that private data through RAG.
yes,
Now, I want to pause for a second because we're going to give Michael a pop quiz.
yeah.
Michael, what does RAG stand for?
You know what? I knew it until you asked me.
I know, right? When we talked to Juan, he taught us a lot about this. It's retrieval augmented generation for our other listeners. Um,
Gotcha.
Michael, thank you for setting that up because you just wanted me to explain it. I understand. Well done. Well done. All right.
Appreciate
So,
it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back to your explanation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. So you were right to point that out because like a lot of times like you have a lot of like internal documentation that is not available in the training data out there that like the model was trained on.
Yeah, we,
Uh,
we always say that these LLMs are trained on all the data,
yeah,
but really there's a lot of data
yes,
locked
true.
behind
That's
paywalls
true.
or private corporate data.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes like you want the model like the model that you use internally and they need to get access to those internal data to be helpful in your for example in your teams. You can share those data available like among your teams and you want the model to access to those data and answer some of the questions in those documents for you guys so that like you can find the models helpful.
Okay. So as a student,
Yeah.
you worked with some RAG type stuff,
Yes.
and then that sort of sparked some of your interest.
Yeah.
And then after you graduated,
Yes.
then you maintained your relationship with Sales Factory and you went to work for them.
Yes.
Okay. Did you do similar type stuff or did you have new projects?
I think like I continue to do like similar stuff like for I think for a couple of months before like we go on to like implement like a newer structure and then like I get to like work on a different system. But like pretty much it was still like around like that rack system. We just expanded into a different branch.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting part is where everybody's talking about AI taking jobs. Well, you probably specifically got it as a human, like, oh, we need somebody who understands AI. And so your expertise in that
Yeah.
probably ended up getting you the job.
Yeah, I think like the human knowledge is still very important like in the world of AI. Like even though like it can really help you accelerate a lot of your work. Like so for example, I think when we started like we have like 10 people or like I think more than 10 people in the team. but eventually some of people left, and I think like our productivity hasn't really like gone down that much because of the AI has become a lot more useful, and that kept like our engineers a lot more productive. So we were still able to keep pace with like the pace that like we maintained before, but also like have less people like working on the project.
Okay. And I know you've said before that AI isn't for what you do so much of a replacement, but more of like an assistant or a co-pilot
Yes.
with what you do. Can you give some examples of that?
Um, yeah, I think like a few years let me I can like walk you through like how the AI in the software industry has changed in the past like 3 years.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's like a whole century in real time
Yeah.
in AI in AI
Yeah.
time.
In the AI, I think I can like route them up in the past 3 years. So I think in around like 2022, 2023, the most used application of AI in coding is lots of people they just like paste a problem to copy the problem, put in ChatGPT, and they give you back the code. And sometimes you just get that code and plug into like your own like code base and like hope that works. um, so that's like usually what happened around like 2022, 2023, and then like code tab completion become a lot more like useful where people just started writing a couple things on the editor, and then like it started to suggest like a next few lines, and people already found it like really really helpful. And I think at that time like when I was at Wake, that code completion is a very very useful like features on IDE such as like Visual Studio Code, when we just need like to type a couple of things, like for example like when we need to define a functions, we type like the function names and the model already knows that, oh, this is there's some next step that you want to implement inside that functions. So code completion was very common like around like 2023 to like early 2024. And then in 2024 and 2025, um big LLM providers like Anthropic, they have like they integrate like their models with a lot of like editors, like coding editors, so that basically become a lot more useful. Like you can describe the function in describe your problem in the prompt, and they would be able to give you like for example the entire script that kind of match the pattern in your code base already. Um, so you can just like plug in your code base, and like I would say like around 60% to 50% of that the time like the code it generate would work. Um, from like 2025 to now, like a lot more other like LM providers like Google or OpenAI, they have also adopted like the same thing. They build like codecs. OpenAI they build codecs. For Google, they build like Gemini, like command line interface, like CLI. It's like, which is like a competitor like, to Cloud Code. So they build those things, and their capability become a lot more higher than before, like where they can read the entire code base, learn how you learn your pattern in other scripts, and then they can just like generate like the new code that match your coding style, but also like maintain the patterns like in your code base. It's been like really really helpful and a lot more productive to use like AI in the day-to-day workflow.
So we had a really nerdy episode recently where we talked a lot about coding.
Yeah.
And I know professors here and some staff members and other people are experimenting with a lot of coding, and people are using Claude Code. They're using Firebase Studio. They're using Google AI Studio.
Yeah.
They're using Codex. They're using Lovable, Replit, Cursor. They're forking VS Code. I'm leaving out 12 others, but people are experimenting with everything.
Yes.
When you're in your day-to-day job at Sales Factory, do you guys standardize on a platform? Do you just use browser coding? Do you have an IDE that you normally use, or is it just like, hey, what's best at the time?
I think like we are very like flexible in terms of like uh, I would say that usually it starts from we we gotta know like what is the problem we are trying to solve before like we divide like the teams and the member who's gonna work on the problems. And for example, if I get like paired with like another member in the team, then we usually gonna pair program together, and at that point we would decide like which framework or which like IDE. Like usually the IDE can be flexible. Like for example, if I use a VS Code, my team can use Cursor. That shouldn't be a problem. But at the end of the day, like our code need to go to the one specific place, which we use at GitHub, like for version control. I can use a Visual Studio Code, like he can use a Cursor or whatever like he use, and as long as we deploy to like GitHub and we maintain the principle that we want to implement for these particular features, then there shouldn't be any problems.
So you can basically use your favorite agentic coding tool or your favorite IDE, and as long as you centralize it in a repository,
Yes.
you're just experimenting with everyone.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite model for coding?
It's been like changing a lot.
And if you pick Grok, you have to leave.
No, like I'm a big fan of I used to be like a fan of like Sonnet model, like Cloud Sonnet. But then like Codec has gone very, very good like in the recent release. They got like Codec like 5.3 recently. I think just last week after our like chat.
Yeah.
That model is, I think it's very competitive. It's interesting to see that like OpenAI, they got the first mover advantage when they first released that model, that people was really exciting about it. The first version of ChatGPT, and then like Anthropic came later, and they was like they very behind OpenAI, but then they have a very strong focus on like coding models.
Yeah, they do.
So they release a lot of like good model, and they have been like leading the coding all of the coding like test models for a long time. And people were talking that maybe like OpenAI has been like behind like Anthropic, but they've been catching up really well in the recent models, like 5.2, starting like from 5.2 and 5.3 has, I would say they very like similar to each other now in terms of the performance.
Have you tried any of the open models, especially even the ones coming out of China, Qwen, Kimi K2, anything like that?
Yeah, so like we used to, so in a sales factory, we even like used to like integrate like DeepSeek in some of the extent, but then like I think our clients, they have some issue with like they have some concern regarding the data privacy. They were worried that like the data shared with the models coming from China would not be
well, I think, but if you download them and you put them in your own environment,
yes,
but the one reason I asked that is because again, professors here are experimenting with everything, and open models are big for research, and I just didn't know if again, out in the real world, you're playing with open models, or are you sticking more with the major frontier labs?
So yeah, I think like for a lot of the clients, like they would not care too much about like are you like hosting the model locally, so that like it would be entirely secure. They the only thing they know that like, oh, this model come from China, I don't want to give my data. Yeah, it's like the China's perception that like they don't want to like share the model with them. I share the data.
On the subject of like security and privacy, have you noticed any issues like when using any of these models with it, like utilizing coding practices that like create an issue of that itself? Like Ryan and I have talked about it in the past with people about it coding things in a way that can expose your data or, login details, API keys, you name it. I'm just curious if you've noticed any issues with any of the models.
I think like I haven't really seen any like news or articles that like specifically like expose that like those like Chinese model really like breach privacy, like data privacy or something. I think like Kimi model is like they released recently, which they claim to be very like high performance in codings. But I haven't got to try them yet, but I'll be excited like to try them, but I just didn't get like the chance to like interact with those models. But regarding like your question, like Michael, I don't think like I have seen any like big issue in the industry, like anybody that write about that like security thing, that breach of the security.
Okay. Yeah, I just mentioned that because I worked on a project pretty recently where I was like, it was low stakes, just doing something for fun, and things that you would typically, keep in like environmental variables. It was just putting in that code. And then so like that, led to me thinking like, how we always talk about having the human in the loop is so important because, you may not even know what that means at all or the importance of that at all. So if you have someone kind of faking it until they make it, I wouldn't be shocked if we do see some issues, down the line with something like that.
That's true.
All right, let's wake up the non-coders for a second. I know you've built some tools, so I want to hear. Some of these are pretty cool. One of the projects you talk about working on at Sales Factory is an AI tutor for students.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you built and how that functions?
Yeah, so I think that project, like we launched that project around I think 2 years ago. So at that time, like I was at custom GPT. I think a lot of people would be familiar with.
Yeah.
We perform pretty much the same way as a custom GPT, but
Yeah, and so we've talked about custom GPTs and we've talked about Gemini gems. So
yeah,
those are pretty similar. So just for people who have listened before, custom GPTs and gems are more or less reusable prompts with some context built in.
that's true. Yeah, so for that tutor, we would upload like all of the lectures, documents, anything that related to like of course lectures, we upload in that models in that like AI tutors, so that they have the context about everything related to that course. But like we would we force the behavior of the models to only guide students to the right direction instead of give them like the specific answer. For anything like custom GPT, student like they can still trick the model to give them the answer, but like we train the model to behave in a specific way that like would never give the student the answer, but like only be like a helpful AI tutors to them instead of.
So you put some more guardrails,
Yes.
and then you probably, I would assume, built a little bit of more of an educational persona into
Yes.
the model,
Yes.
so it leads the students, not just gives them the answers for
Correct.
things.
Yes.
And you fill it. Is that like professor by professor? So does a professor put in its own, his or her own context?
Yeah.
So all their materials, all their notes, and so does a professor build?
The only thing that professor need to do is like they upload the materials and that. So like if they can also like add more of the instruction like to the prompt, like if they wanted to like behave in some of the specific way that he want to like the model to behave. That's the only thing that the like, professor need to do. Yeah.
And I think when we had Juan Hernandez on here, I think he was talking a little bit about this. And the interesting side from the user perspective is the students can interact with this tutor anytime. So at 2 a.m. when hopefully our professors are getting some much needed rest and we know the students are still awake, they can do some interaction there. And what it also allows to happen is a lot of those basic questions get taken care of. So when the student does go have a conversation with the professor, it's more of a high value relationship, high value conversation.
Correct.
You're getting that basic understanding, you're getting those basic questions out of the way because all that content's already built in.
Yes.
So now when the student goes to the professor, it's actually a more worthwhile conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were really really enthusiastic when Juan told us about that, and I'm glad you worked on it. I can see that being incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like a lot of professors would not be so feeling so annoyed that like, oh, this should come to me with this basic question that they can just say easily like find in the lectures or something like that.
You talked about another project you worked on for business owners.
Yes.
Where they were reading and interacting with business reviews.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So you can see like we work with like a couple of like corporations that like they may have like, for example, like, specifically in the restaurant industry. For some of the business, they may have like multiple locations, and one of the job that like the manager or whoever like in charge of like the branches they need to do is they have to take care of the reviews. So in the platform, like we centralize all the reviews of that business into like our platform. So basically, if you have like 10 locations, like normally like you would need to like log in your Google account into like 10 different like accounts in order to be able to like respond to each reviews. So our platform, we would centralize everything together. And for each user reviews, we would like pre-generate like a response for the owner. They can just like review like the response. And if they like it, they think that the response like would match the tone of voice that they would use like, to respond to that like particular reviews. They would just like click accept, and then like that response would go straight to like the platform, either Google or Yelp. And they don't have to like log in into like Google or Yelp like to respond to the reviews. They can just do that like through our platforms. And beyond that, we also build a lot of like dashboard analytics to give user like more insight about the reviews, things like heat maps or like the word clouds that like the user can log in into our platform where we centralize the reviews of all the locations. We have a lot of knowledge about like what people are talking about, like their locations or in their brands in general.
Are there any cool projects, whether professional that you're
Yeah.
doing or personal, that you really want to work on? You're like, ooh, with some of these new AI tools, like this wasn't possible before. And now it's like something, ooh, I want to go try, I want to go do.
Um, I would say like one thing that AI has unlocked me a lot in the past year, which is about I'm more like a back-end engineer. I'm not like I'm not much of a like a front-end developers. So it has really give me like a lot of like knowledge in the front end in the front end developers. So I spent a lot of time in the past year that like working on some of the like web design that I really I don't think that if AI never happened, I would ever like have the interest or have the time to really like get to learn about like web designer that like web design that much. But since AI kind of basically opened the door for me, they can just ask any question about like web design, how I should like design the web in a way that like I would love to. It would be like kind of silly if I just go and ask people and bother like people with a lot of like basic question like exactly like you just talk about in the tutor stuff. So I just interact with the models, and I got to learn a lot more about like web design like techniques, and I use that a lot to build some of the website for my families. Like they have some businesses, and but they didn't have like a dedicated website for their business before, and I got to like build a couple of like web for them like for their business. And I think like if not because of AI, I would never like get the time or get the expertise to like help them with that.
That's a great story. These are
Yeah.
skills you didn't have before.
Yes.
Probably tasks or projects you wouldn't have worked on.
Yes.
And now you're empowered. You're supercharged almost.
Yeah, I think like if I would need to like take the time to learn about like principle of web design or UIs and UX, I think it would take me at least around 2 or 3 years to build like a good quality like website. But with the help of AI, like just within a short amount of time, I was able to like build like 3 like website for like my families.
There's an interesting tool in Google Labs that I've been playing around with called Stitch, that it is a prototyping tool for apps.
Yes.
You just type what you want to do, and it pops up like a front end to create for you. And for me, that's wonderful because I'm not a designer either. So it's really cool to see if I have an idea how AI would design it for me.
Yeah.
And then that's before it goes and builds all the code, everything. You can kind of see, oh, that's my idea, come straight like that. And so it's really cool that I don't have to go find a designer, that I can do that now.
You think that was one of the since we talk about Stitch. So one of the AI application that I use, I really like is so I send a message to like either Gemini, both I use both like Gemini and ChatGPT for this. I just tell them that every single day at 6 a.m. Just summarize all the news related to like the AI, the tech industry happening in the past 24 hours, and like consolidate those information for me. And every morning at 6 a.m. they send me a message. They just summarize all the news happened in the yesterday. And
do you do that through a gem or a custom GPT, or how do you do that?
you can just send a message to ChatGPT, and they would like out schedule.
It's a scheduled action.
Yes, they out of schedule that for me. And Stitch like came through to my news feed like one day, and then that's how I got to know Stitch. And I did actually try out. It was a really cool applications.
Yeah, I know people who have played with those scheduled actions too. That's kind of cool. You can just ask in, natural language,
Yes.
do this for me each day.
And it's really insightful. Yeah, every day like you wake up, like you kind of like educate yourself a little bit, like with all the news that happen in your field. Like
Yeah, because with the way AI goes, a day you get a lot of news.
I'm curious when you're like learning something new, whether it's coding related or not, like do you often find yourself apart from just it helping you with what you're trying to learn, like actually breaking it down to kind of explain what it's doing? Because I've started doing that if I'm working with languages that I don't use that often, where I kind of trying to be better about, instead of just taking what it's giving me, kind of being like, explain why it's doing this for me if I don't understand it right away.
It's very interesting that like so Anthropic they just released like a survey like it's more like a blog just last week. I found it very interesting that so they did a survey. They did a test on like 52 like very experienced developers. They split them into like two groups. One and they have like two assignments to work on like for those two groups. One can use AI to solve the assignments. The other groups like not allowed to use AI at all. And the group that got the highest like score. So after they did the assignments, they have to like do a quiz so that they can test the understanding of their problems. And the group that got the highest score on the quiz was like the groups that use AI to generate the code, but they also use AI to make them explain everything that they did, try to understand their thought process. I think they got like 86 out of 100 on the quiz, like after they finished the assignments. That kind of very exciting. Like you should check it out. That on the Anthropic website, and then
That's
it's
cool.
on I think in the developer blogs or something like that.
Okay.
It was just
Very cool.
released last week, and I found that article's really, really insightful.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, to Michael's question, when I'm doing some new task, coding or something else, I do sometimes ask, can you explain what you just did, or why did you do that?
Yeah, because I, we were talking about it, we've talked about it quite a bit and everything, about using it, as a tool and to help you and all that. But I start to worry now that, especially in the education process, what we'll see is more of just, a copy and paste mentality. And then, how we always talk about having the human in the loop and the professional and the expertise. I worry if that baseline will get lower and lower as people, there's less people who came up learning it from the ground up and are more used to having that tool.
Yes, I was thinking about this the other day. So lots of people they think very like negative about AI. They would think that AI would make people like understand like less about the problem. I mean, like they would have like less understanding about like the thing that all the skills will become like rusty in the future, like because like they don't get to like have a deep understanding about the things that they have been like working on anymore. But to me, like from my perspective, I think that like if you use AI in the right way, it can even like help you understand the work that you're working on even like deeper. So
Yeah.
here's like what I was thinking. So a lot of time, like for example, it can work for students as well. So in my case, if I need to like work on the new frameworks, traditionally like I would need to go to that page and read the documentations. And sometimes I might get lost in the documentation for 2 or 3 hours without even able to like find the right piece of information. But what AI can help me is like it can find exact page that contain those informations. And I basically I free up this time that I have to like go look through that documents. And when I looked at
Yeah.
that page, because I still have a lot of energy, I can like actually like dig into that topic a little bit more so that I can like deepen my understanding on that topics. But like versus like if you have to spend like, for example, a day to look for that piece of information, like you probably don't have the energy to like dig into that information anymore. And same as for students, sometimes like if they find very interesting about any like lectures or topics, with AI help, they can easily go on AI and they use ChatGPT to ask more questions about like any
Yeah.
definition or topic that they've just learned at school instead of like having to like go to the Google and search and read every single blogs, and they can even like get lost in there. So I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a very cool application of AI if like it really strengthens your understanding on like the work that you are doing if you kind of know how to use it correctly.
Yeah.
When you were in the graduate program, are there things you wish you could have done with AI? Would you have used it differently, knowing what you know now?
I think I think I am. So when I was at Wake, I think I'm very happy with like the way that I interact with like AI before, and I think I'm still maintain that habit until now, which I just use AI to get some of the ideas. I still try to use. I'm like even at this point, I'm still trying to like think about the problem for myself. I try to come up with the solutions and brainstorm the solution myself first before I use AI to evaluate or critics like my plans and maybe like do the pair like brainstorming with me. I still did the same thing like when I was back in the time and was at Wake. Um, at that time, for example, like before I approach assignments, I try to solve the problem by myself first. Or if I need to use AI, I'll just like ask them to give me some hint how I can like solve the problem instead of like having them to like solve the problem for me. Um, I think that approach that like AI use how the way that I use AI before is still like how the way that I use AI right now. So I won't say that I regret anything or I should have tried something like differently if I go back to that time.
So much of the discussion about AI, especially in education, and then that transition to the workplace, is about students, maybe it hindering their preparedness for the careers they'll enter. But from your perspective, do you see the possibility for AI to specifically like help bridge that gap? Because I mean, I feel like I'll say I was a decent student. I thought I did pretty well. I'm lucky enough to love what I do. And I still felt in over my head when I went from school to my profession.
Yeah, I do think that the AI is really like play a role in the like the job market right now because like I would say like from my perspective, um like previously when the company they need to make a decision to hire anyone, they would just like look at the current like capacity. They would just think that oh we need to like we need someone to like work on this. They would just like then they make a job post and they hire people. But like they say lots of the teams they would like at first they approach would be can we use AI to like automate this instead? So that's definitely like have an effect, the impact on like the job market. Like so that's really challenging to new graduate students. Um, so one thing I would say is your soft skill like would become a lot more important. Like how you work with people and like how you approach people would be a lot more important than like your like the setup skill that you have.
Yeah.
Um, so I think like I was also one of the students that would really struggle to like find a job like when I graduated like but I think like the thing that got me the job that I'm in right now is like I was able to like reach out to like the right persons, demonstrate that like my interest in like the company, demonstrate my interest in like the project, and having to like prove my understanding on the topic that the thing that I'm working on. Those are the keys that like help me like find a job back then. So I think that's probably still applicable like to like the current job market. You gotta find like yourself like the field that you enjoy like working on, then like you need to like reach out to the right people, the team that like kind of
Yeah.
in need of that skill set, and then like you gotta demonstrate that like your skill, like you have the knowledge to work on like the project that they are doing instead of like
Yeah.
having a very like shallow knowledge is you which they can just like use AI to like automate everything.
Yeah.
So now that you've had a little bit of experience in the real world, what would you tell current students about preparing for the world of work where AI is integrated into things? Now, let's set the stage where Sales Factory is a
Yeah.
pretty AI forward company. So you are using artificial intelligence on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But even other companies that just sort of touch it, what would you tell the students how to prepare themselves in terms of their knowledge of AI, how it's used? Like, what sort of wisdom would you take from your experience now?
Yeah, so I think like having a strong foundations in the for example, depends on the field that you are going in, but like having a strong foundation of like whatever you are studying is still very important because like right now like in at the work you're gonna use AI to do a lot of stuff like you use AI to generate code, but in every team and every project you work on, there's still like a specific principle that you need to follow. And those are the principle, the foundation that like you need to learn at school. You need to learn like during your time like in undergrad or even at grad school. There's still a lot of like foundation knowledge that you need to learn in order to know like where you can use AI to like pair program with you or use AI to like help you to get to where you want to be. So one thing I would really emphasize is that you gotta have a strong understanding of like what you're working on. Understand the problem, the root cause of the problems. Having a strong foundation, that's probably my best advice.
All right. And they're going to come to you to find out what's happening every day in the AI industry and the news all day. So be prepared. I think we're just going to give out your phone number to everybody and you'll just tell them what's going on. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine to me.
All right. Well, I think it's a good place to wrap up. We have some advice from somebody out in the real world who has been through Wake, has gone out and done some working and can tell our students exactly what they should look forward to. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks again to our guest, and thanks for listening to the Deeks.ai podcast. Please continue to follow the AI discussion by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you have any comments, questions, or would like to join the discussion, please email us at deeks.ai@wfu.edu.